Hello and welcome to the Armenian News Network Groong Weekend Review. This show was recorded on Tuesday, May 10th, 2022. I'm Asbed Bedrossian, and along with Hovik Manucharyan, this week we're going to talk about the following major topics: the mass protests growing in Yerevan, Foreign Minister Mirzoyan in Washington, D.C., and Turkish-Armenian Normalization Round 3. To talk about these issues, we have with us Benyamin Poghosyan, who is the chairman of the Yerevan-based think tank Center for Political and Economic Strategic Studies. Hi, Benyamin. Thanks for joining us today.
Hello, Benyamin.
Hi, Asbed. Hi, Hovik. It's always a pleasure to be with you.
Same here. All right, let's talk about the mass protests that are growing in Yerevan right now. Hovik, you and I have been covering the mass protests on Twitter live on a day-to-day basis. Today is May 10th. Can you give us an update on what's going on?
I think in general, despite the bad weather and sometimes really bad at times weather, the crowd size is generally increasing. And yesterday night, Monday, was probably, if not the largest, then it was on par with previous weeks, like I think Friday's size. So the entire week, during the daytime, there were sort of acts of disobedience, marches and so forth. Concluding with a big rally and a big march at the end of the day. With the exception of Sunday there were some cultural programs, and they were, they had food, the Zhingyalov huts and harissa and whatever. But in general, I think the opposition protests they seem to have some elements of good organization.
I'm seeing that momentum growing, to be honest.
Yesterday's meeting was interesting in that finally the opposition is revealing their cards a little bit more in terms of their political agenda. And I believe the ARF and Hayasan Dashing released like a 6-point sort of plan on what they will be doing for, if the protest movement is successful. A lot of the critics of the opposition protests have said, well, what are you gonna do? Your policy will not be different. And we talked a little bit about that with Anna Grigoryan, as you know, last night. But essentially the 6 points were, formation of a transitional government, adjusting the priority to ensure the security of Armenian Artsakh and the return of Armenian POWs. Number 3, excludes the provision of corridors to the territory of Armenia under the pretext of normalization of relations. Number 4 was the, no demarcation and delineation of borders to the detriment of countries' interests. 5, the relations with Turkey will exclude any doubt about the fact of the Armenian genocide. And lastly, number 6, the Prime Minister will no longer be able to make decisions alone, especially in the field of security. They specifically proposed that the decisions related to security will be a consensus decision, taking into account the recommendations from, I guess, or the voice of the National Security Council.
Yeah, and I think, Hovik, one of the things that I remember from Anna Grigoryan's response was also the time factor, right? She said basically that the opposition did not understand what the urgency was about signing a peace at all costs right away. Why?
And apart from all this, the biggest issue is, change of negotiator. Why do we have a negotiator who has his hands tied behind his back, has the sort of shame of being the loser in this war, negotiating with the victor in the war? And why such a big hurry? And actually, that's another point of criticism against the opposition, saying that, well, if the opposition comes to power, it's not like they will be able to change the pace of the negotiations because Azerbaijan is dictating that through military pressure. I don't know if I agree with that, and I asked that question to Anna Grigoryan as well, and she gave a response during the live. So I will let our listeners listen to Anna Grigoryan's live, maybe for the answer to that. But we will also publish her interview separately.
Let's see if we can get that on YouTube sometime very soon. Benjamin, what has been Russia's response to these protests, and what outcome would serve their interests?
Okay, officially, Russian response was quite modest and restricted. We hear the Russian officials from MFA and also the press secretary of Russian president that, okay, there is some instability in Armenia, but you are interested in stability, which will allow us to move forward also on Armenia-Azerbaijan issues. But at the end of the day, these are the domestic politics of Armenia. As far as I understand, Russia does not want to be directly linked with these protests, because you know that there are also a lot of discussions here in Armenia, especially within pro-Western circles, that all this is organized by Russia to put pressure on Pashinyan or to kick out democratically elected Armenian government, and all this is presented like another neo-imperialist attempt of Russia to fight democracy in the post-Soviet space. Definitely, Russia is not interested to somehow be connected with these protests, and Russia does not want to be seen as a state who is directly instigating something like a color revolution in former Soviet space. We all know that Russia is against in any color revolutions, but now there are attempts to present the protests in Armenia as a direct effort of Russia, and Russia does not like this. And frankly speaking, I don't believe that Russia has any interest for any change of government here in Armenia, because on strategic level, I don't see any request or any demand, or let's put request, maybe the right term is request. I don't see any request on strategic issues which Russia may ask for current Armenian government, Prime Minister, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, or Secretary of Security Council, whom they are going to reject. So I don't see any reason that Russia should be interested in changing the government, and I don't believe to these speculations that, okay, this is a Russia orchestrated color revolution in Armenia trying to kick out democratic government of Armenia. I don't think this is the fact, and I believe that Russia also is not interested to this to be seen or to be perceived that this is a fact. But also, I have a clear understanding that Russia is not interested in quick signature of peace treaty between Armenia and Azerbaijan, because Russia has concerns that this may lead to Azerbaijan and also potentially to the collective West, at least to the European Union and the United States, at least either to demand immediate withdrawal of Russian peacekeepers from Nagorno-Karabakh, or at least not to extend the Russian peacekeeper mandate beyond November 2025. So Russia has these concerns that peace treaty between Armenia and Azerbaijan, which will fix status of Nagorno-Karabakh, may serve as a reason for Azerbaijan and for the collective West not to extend the deployment of Russian peacekeepers in Nagorno-Karabakh beyond November 2025. And as far as I understand, Russia wants to be in Karabakh beyond November 2025 as long as possible. So theoretically, they are not interested to see some hurry in this signature of peace treaty. And here, about speaking of not hurry, this is not the issue that, okay, Armenia and Azerbaijan was going to sign this peace treaty in June or July 2022, and is Russia against this? We all understand that negotiations hasn't started yet, and definitely negotiations will take time. But even if this peace treaty is going to be signed somewhere in autumn 2023 or even in spring 2024, like 2 years before now, but at the end of the day, this peace treaty will fix the status of Nagorno-Karabakh as part of Azerbaijan, some agreement between Armenia and Azerbaijan. Then again, Russia is concerned that this will be used by Azerbaijan and by the West not to extend the deployment of Russian peacekeepers in Nagorno-Karabakh.
Benjamin, what did you think about Maria Zakharova's recent statement where she said that we hope that the domestic, protests in Armenia will soon be over soon, so that we can begin the discussions around. I mean, I'm not saying that these opposition protests are directly or even indirectly sponsored by Russia, but this did seem that Russia was acknowledging that the protests were a reason for pause in the process between Aliyev and Pashinyan negotiations. And if so, even if they don't achieve any results, do you think, that sort of fits this pause, seems to be conducive to Russia's geopolitical interests?
My understanding is that By this statement, Zakharova would like to claim that, okay, as far as there is a political instability in Armenia, we cannot move forward to signing the peace agreement. And here I believe we should separate two things: signature of peace treaty and negotiations on peace treaty. Because I'm not in a position to claim that Russia is not interested in the start of negotiations. Because if there are no negotiations, it will provide Azerbaijan a pretext again to use military blackmail. And in that case, Russia will be in a bad situation. Answer, Azerbaijan is military blackmail through military means. It will ruin Russia-Azerbaijan relations and also create complications in Russia-Turkey relations. If Russia keeps silence and doing nothing, it will trigger more anti-Russian sentiment in Armenia, and also it will hit hard the Russian image as a country who is not able even to deal with tiny Azerbaijan. So not to provide Azerbaijan a pretext for military blackmail or for military escalation, I believe Russia is interested for the start of the process. But all these protests are the clear signs that even if peace negotiations will start, they will go on very slowly, and it will be very problematic at the end of the day to sign an agreement fixing Nagorno-Karabakh as part of Azerbaijan. So from that point of view, I believe, yes, these protests are a good reason also for current Armenian government. Of course, if government would like to use this reason, are a pretty good reason to start the process very slowly and to send clear messages both to the Azerbaijan and also to other players involved in this geopolitics of our region that, look, guys, I'm ready to start the process, but look what's going on inside Armenia. Any attempt to speed up this process may result in more instability in Armenia, and more instability in Armenia may force even the pause in negotiations. So it's better to have slow negotiations than have no negotiations. So let's not be in a hurry. At least the Armenian government can use this.
Just reading the news around Armenia, it seems to me that the government activity level is significantly reduced. They seem mostly inactive and trying to deal with the protests right now.
At least we may see that the deadline, which was agreed on April 6th, when Pashinyan met Aliyev and Charles Michel in Brussels, the deadline was to establish this bilateral border delimitation and demarcation commission until end of April. Today is May 10th, and we still do not have this commission, though Armenia and Azerbaijan agreed the structure of commission during the second direct phone call between Armenian and Azerbaijani foreign ministers. But still, we do not have the personal list, personal members of this commission, and no one knows when this commission will start to work. So in any case, we can argue that the protest movement in Yerevan significantly slowed down the process of starting peace negotiations, the process of starting the activities of bilateral border delimitation and demarcation commission. It did not stop it, but it significantly decreased the pace of these activities.
Benjamin, what do you think about how Azerbaijan is reacting to these protests? Almost every day they release news that Armenian forces are provoking by firing on the border, whereas I believe it was 3 days ago where we actually had Azerbaijan shoot on the border and even injure an employee of the Sotk gold mine. This seems to be like a really interesting escalation where a civilian is targeted inside the borders of Armenia.
Just over the weekend.
Yeah. I got some flack, although I wouldn't say it's flack, by our fans on and I use that in quotes, by my fans on Twitter, when I said that Aliyev and Pashinyan may, whatever Aliyev is doing may actually help Pashinyan's hand internally, in that more escalations on the border will mean more caution from the opposition, or at least that's the sort of theory. What do you think about that theory, and why do you think Azerbaijan is escalating in this point in time?
I believe it's a complicated game from Azerbaijani side. First of all, Azerbaijan is interested to start and finish negotiations on peace treaty as soon as possible. because from Azerbaijani point of view, as a result of 2020 war, they finished with Nagorno-Karabakh. Yes, they accepted the deployment of Russian peacekeepers, temporary deployment of Russian peacekeepers in Nagorno-Karabakh, but from their point of view, the war and November 10 statement, it was not simply a ceasefire, but it was something like almost an agreement which fixed this Karabakh is lost, at least for Armenia. But now they are interested to fix this also in legal way, like signing a bilateral Armenia-Azerbaijan peace treaty. So yes, Azerbaijan is interested to start negotiations and to finish negotiations as soon as possible and to capitalize on their victory of 2020 Karabakh war. Now, they fully understand that this protest movement in Armenia somehow reducing the room for Pashinyan to maneuver. I'm not sure if they believe that this is something like agreed game between opposition and Pashinyan, or opposition really puts pressure on Pashinyan while Pashinyan is really interested to sign this peace third treaty. I'm not sure if in Azerbaijan they have clear picture. They may think that this is a agreed game between Pashinyan and opposition to allow Pashinyan to slow down the protest, or they may believe that this is a not agreed game and Prime Minister is really interested to push forward with his idea of this peace, era of peace in the South Caucasus, but opposition does not allow them through this protest, and also they may feel that the protests somehow serve Russian interests, regardless is Russia involved or not involved, but objectively protests serve also Russian interests. Now, coming back to the issue of slightly escalating on Armenia-Azerbaijan border, this could be some message to Russia that, look, guys, if peace negotiations are not going to start, we may escalate further, and we know very well that we are not interested in escalation. So at least let's start some negotiations. This could be the signal to Russians that if negotiations are not going to be started, at least, then we may escalate further. This could be also the signal to Prime Minister Pashinyan that, okay, if you are playing a game with opposition, then you may face escalation on the border. This escalation may grow, and this may put you in a complicated situation, because opposition, again, may accuse you of not keeping up your promises, because in June 2021, you promised to launch an era of peace, and after 1 year, you may face a growing escalation. So I believe this escalation or slight escalation and potential to escalate more, because when Azerbaijan tells that, okay, Armenian forces are shooting at us, they prepare pretext to shoot at Armenian forces if they think this is necessary or useful. But the audience are both Russia, and also audience is Prime Minister Pashinyan. I don't think that audience is an opposition, because Azerbaijan understands that many of those who are protesting in Yerevan, at the end of the day, in any case, they will reject any peace treaty which will fix Nagorno-Karabakh as part of Azerbaijan, even if they believe that this will create an opportunity for Azerbaijan to escalate further. So I don't believe that the target audience of this recent escalation in Sotk was the Armenian opposition. I believe this was Russia, and also this was the Prime Minister.
Benjamin, just one more on the Russian-Azerbaijani relations. There seems to be other signs of public tension between Russia and Azerbaijan. For instance, yesterday, or was it the day before, I read an article where it appeared that Russia was accusing Azerbaijan of having US-funded biolabs in Azerbaijan. And the only way we know about this is because Azerbaijan loudly denied that they have any such labs. So what is your opinion about the dynamic of Azerbaijani-Russian relations in the context of this peace negotiations?
Okay, the key issue is is Azerbaijan going to extend the deployment of Russian peacekeepers beyond November 2025? And what these extensions, what form of these extensions could be? Definitely, Azerbaijan is not going to extend the deployment through another trilateral statement. Definitely, this should be bilateral, at least from Azerbaijani point of view. Some bilateral agreement between Azerbaijan and Russia. But for Azerbaijan is also very important the content of this bilateral agreement. My understanding is that Azerbaijan believes that if Azerbaijan agrees to the further extension of Russian peacekeeping force deployment in Nagorno-Karabakh, but after November 2025, Azerbaijan should have more influence on the territory which is currently controlled by Russian peacekeepers, these 3,000 square kilometers, Stepanakert and surrounding, that Azerbaijan should have more influence in these territories than before November 2025. So my understanding is that Azerbaijan will agree to the extension of deployment of Russian peacekeepers in Nagorno-Karabakh beyond November 2025 only if these two demands are met. First, it should be bilateral agreement or memorandum of understanding or bilateral document signed between Azerbaijan and Russia. And second, this should provide Azerbaijan to have at least some influence over these territories, while we know that currently Azerbaijan has zero influence over those territories. What will be the Russian reaction regarding the bilateral agreement? Maybe Russia will agree to this. I don't believe this is a violation of vital Russian strategic interest if the extension of the peacekeepers mandate will be on bilateral base and not on trilateral. Regarding Azerbaijan dreams or Azerbaijan's wishes or demands to have some influence on these territories beyond November 2025, it's very difficult to assess what the Russian reaction will be. I know for sure only two things. First, Russia would like to have permanent military presence in Nagorno-Karabakh, and second, Russia understands that only existence of Armenian population in Nagorno-Karabakh guarantee the presence of Russian military presence in Nagorno-Karabakh. But does it mean that Russia will demand from Azerbaijan to keep the current status quo when Azerbaijan de facto and de jure has no influence on these territories? Or maybe Russia may somehow come to agreement with Azerbaijan to allow Baku to have some influence, but while keeping Armenians in Nagorno-Karabakh, and thus serving its both two goals, like keeping its troops there and also keeping Armenian
Benjamin, what kind of
population. It's
influence
very
are we
difficult.
talking about? Are we
I'm
talking
not
about,
sure
for
what
example,
kind of
making them
influence.
officially provide electricity and gas and things like that, turning it over to Azeri control?
It could be this. Also, it could be some economic, if not cooperation, but economic contacts, like to allow some goods to be imported to Nagorno-Karabakh from Azerbaijan, or maybe facilitate some export of some goods from Nagorno-Karabakh to Azerbaijan. I don't think that while speaking about some influence, we speak about Azerbaijani government officials entering Stepanakert and Azerbaijani citizen becoming mayor of Stepanakert or mayor of Martakert or head of police. But I believe it could be partly the provision or supply of electricity, gas, and also some form of economic, if not cooperation, but at least economic relations, like export something from Karabakh to Azerbaijan and import something from Azerbaijan to Karabakh. Like Azerbaijan may offer Russian peacekeepers to facilitate this process or at least not to prevent this process. And we all understand that when economic interaction starts, let's not call it cooperation, let's call it interaction. It could be a base within several years for economic penetration of Azerbaijan into Karabakh. Then maybe Azerbaijan will say, okay, if we are having some economic interaction, so what currency should we use? Armenian drams, Azerbaijani manat, maybe Russian ruble. I believe by speaking about that Azerbaijan would like to have at least some influence on these territories if Russian peacekeepers will continue to be deployed there. My understanding is that mostly this is the influence which will derive from economic interaction.
Let's talk about Mirzoyan in DC. As we know, Foreign Minister Mirzoyan was in DC last week meeting Secretary of State Anthony Blinken and other Washington leaders such as Mitch McConnell, Bob Menendez, etc. And U.S. Ambassador to Armenia Lynn Tracy accompanied Mirzoyan to DC. Many have noted the interesting timing of this visit. Do you think that the timing had anything to do with the growing protest movements, Benjamin, or perhaps even fears by Pashinyan government of losing power and seeking essentially assistance from the US?
No, frankly speaking, I don't believe. First of all, as far as I understand, these type of visits, they are being prepared a long time before. So this type of visit cannot be prepared within weeks.
Right.
Second, this was a part of US-Armenia strategic dialogue, which was launched in May 2019. The first dialogue happened in Yerevan in May 2019. Then in September 2020, there was a online strategic dialogue just, I believe, 6 days before the second or 44 Karabakh war. And now, because somehow the situation on COVID becoming close to normal, this, I believe, was a third meeting of Armenia-US strategic dialogue. Regarding the results, of course, definitely it's important to have strategic dialogue with the United States, which still is the most powerful country in the world. Maybe not an absolute hegemon, as it was in the period of 1991, 2011, but still US is the most powerful country in the world, and definitely to have strategic dialogue is a useful thing, to share some thoughts directly and to have clear understanding what United States wants from Armenia or what US vision is for Armenia-Azerbaijan relations, Karabakh, the future of South Caucasus. And also, let's not forget that in recent years, there was no bilateral meeting between Armenian foreign minister and US Secretary of State. The last meeting was in October 2020, but it was trilateral when US tried to facilitate some ceasefire during 44-day Karabakh war. If you don't take into account this October 2020 meeting, I believe at least starting from January 2017, there was no bilateral meeting between Armenian foreign minister and US Secretary of State, which itself is quite important. But if we look into the results, I don't believe that we see some qualitative change in US-Armenia relations or some strategic leap forward, because there was only one document signed officially, this memorandum of understanding on cooperation on civil nuclear issues, and this itself is a not new thing, because Armenia had an agreement with United States to cooperate on civil nuclear issues signed back in either 2007 or even 2009, and also President Serge Sarkisyan participated in 2 nuclear summits organized by President Obama. So this cooperation on civil nuclear issues is not the new thing. So this was at least the continuation of the trends which were in place for the last 10 or even 15 years. So yes, this was important, but no strategic improvements, no qualitative change in US-Armenia relations.
Okay, well, let me then ask another question. What some geopolitical analysts at least believe, if there is some kind of a grand plan to evict Russia out of the region. I'm not saying that this is a good idea, I'm not advocating that, but if there was such a plan, then wouldn't that involve signing a peace deal with Azerbaijan, meaning that the role of the peacekeepers in Artsakh is redundant, signing a peace deal with Turkey, meaning there's no need to keep a Russian military base in Gyumri, and the last obstacle, in the opinion of such analysts, would be Armenia's energy security and the nuclear power plant. Couldn't this deal lead to the US essentially supporting Armenia in acquiring a new power plant and decommissioning the old one?
Okay, regarding US vision, yes, definitely you are right. Starting from 1991, the United States was supporting Armenia-Turkey normalization with single goal. Armenia-Turkey normalization means less fear of Armenians from Turkey, and less fear of Armenians from Turks or from Turkey means less necessity to have Russian military base in Armenia to somehow deter or contain Turkey. So this is a clear-cut fact. And also, yes, United States believes that if Armenia and Azerbaijan agrees on Nagorno-Karabakh status, it will be a good point to start to demand the withdrawal of Russian troops from Nagorno-Karabakh. It's not secret that the United States is absolutely not happy to see only Russian troops in Nagorno-Karabakh. United States is absolutely not happy to see Russian vision to have a permanent military presence in Nagorno-Karabakh, US against permanent military presence of Russia in Nagorno-Karabakh. And the United States does not perceive Russian troops in Nagorno-Karabakh, which are currently deployed there, as peacekeepers. Because the United States says that to be called peacekeepers, these troops should have international mandate. There are no international mandate for Russian troops currently deployed in Nagorno-Karabakh, which means that they are not peacekeepers. You may call them everything you want, but not peacekeepers.
But there's a trilateral agreement that
yes, this is a trilateral agreement, but the Russian peacekeepers have no mandate. I mean, even in this trilateral statement, not agreement statement, there was no mandate. Then Russia prepared the document of mandate. Armenia agreed to sign, Azerbaijan rejected. But from American perspective, even if both Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Russia signed some document on mandate, which was not the case because, again, Azerbaijan rejected it. Americans are telling that you need international mandate, and there are only two organizations which can provide international mandate for any peacekeeping operations: United Nations Security Council or OSCE. As far as there are no UN Security Council or OSCE mandate on current Russian operation in Nagorno-Karabakh, United States is not going to call them this operation as a peacekeeping operation, and the United States does not recognize the Russian troops as a peacekeepers. So this is a situation. Regarding the nuclear power plant, yes, the West was interested to close down the US nuclear power plant, but we all know that in 2016, Armenia reached a deal with Russia, received $270 million loan and $30 million of grants to make some safety work inside nuclear power plant and to extend its lifespan from 2016 until 2026, which happened. And currently, the nuclear power plant will work until 2026. But according to Armenian and Russian specialists, the nuclear power plant could very simply pass through another renovation and work until 2036. And given the fact that to construct any nuclear power plant, any country needs at least 7 years from the beginning of the process, and Armenia is not at least in the beginning of the process, it means that even if in 2013, the process will start, Armenia will have new nuclear power plant no sooner than 2030. And as hopefully we all understand that Armenia needs nuclear power plant, most probably, I believe we will pass through another renovation or improvements in nuclear power plant, and this nuclear power plant will continue its activities until 2036. And also, I know that there are some negotiations between Armenia and Russia and the Russian Rosatom to see if they are going to build a new nuclear power plant here. And the problem is that either you should construct a small nuclear power plant or reactor with approximately from 200 to 400 megawatt of capacity. The current reactor is only have 400 megawatt of capacity. This is one option. And the second option is to construct a strong nuclear power reactor with at least 1,000 megawatt of capacity. The second option is complicated because Armenian market is too small.
Yeah, it's very expensive.
Georgia now does not need to import electricity, to import much electricity, because they partly import from Azerbaijan and Russia, but Georgian market also is small, and Georgia is making efforts to become self-sufficient and even to become energy exporter. You may say that Iran has a huge market, but Russians constructed the first reactor of Bushehr nuclear power plant in Iran, and second reactor is under construction. Also, there are complications due to the sanctions. But one of the options could be to sell the electricity of this 1,000 megawatt capacity nuclear power plant reactor, which can be established in Armenia, to sell it to Turkey.
This has been touted in the past as part of the Armenian-Turkish normalization process.
Yes, I believe, as far as I know, this was somehow maybe preliminary, but discussed also during soccer or football diplomacy in 2008, 2009. So from Russian perspective, if Russia is going to put money into this new nuclear power plant, and as far as I know, Russia is interested to construct this big reactor of at least 1,000 megawatt, Russia will be interested to sell the electricity to Turkey. And given the huge economic cooperation between Russia and Turkey, we all know that Russia now is constructing Akkuyu nuclear power plant, and the first reactor should be launched in 2023 for this 100th anniversary of Turkish Republic. This seems for me quite logical that Russia could be interested to construct the 1,000 megawatt nuclear power plant in Armenia, and then to have some deal with Turkey and to export most of its electricity into
Eastern
Turkey. Yes, Eastern Turkey or Western Turkey. So let's see. But regarding the US efforts to construct nuclear power plant in Armenia to kick out Russia from Armenian energy business, okay, geopolitically it sounds attractive, but I don't believe that this is the same case as we had, for example, in Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan oil pipeline. We all know that when United States was pushing for this oil pipeline, the oil price was 10, 15 US dollar per barrel. And everybody was telling that, okay, this is economically non-viable project, but Americans still was pushing for this because this for them was a geopolitical project to create this Georgia, Azerbaijan, Turkey partnership as a counterbalance for Russia in the South Caucasus. But frankly speaking, I don't believe that now we have the case that the United States is ready to push economically non-viable project of constructing nuclear power plant in Armenia only for theoretically to reduce or kick out Russia from Armenia. This sounds very attractive in geopolitical terms, but I have some doubts.
What do you think about the other announcement that came right after Mirzoyan left Washington, D.C., which was the Department of Justice launched a civil forfeiture case from 2014 against one of the Nakhins, and it's suddenly in the news, and apparently they want to confiscate some of the property of Khachaturian, former minister of...
I think worth $60 or $63 million.
I mean, that seems to be like directly being involved in Armenian oligarch politics. There are so many oligarchs to choose from that probably all of them hide assets in the U.S. Why did the U.S. start with Groong Khachaturian?
Okay, I'm not in a position to speculate why United States started from Mr. Gagik Khachaturian. Groong is Gagik's son, yeah, who is owner of this Galaxy group of companies, and they own a lot of things inside and outside Armenia. Why they started from former head of customs service, tech service, and then finance minister Gagik Khachaturian, I'm not sure. But as far as I know, immediately after May 2018 change of government, there were some visits from U.S. law enforcement agencies, and U.S. told Armenian government that U.S. may support Armenian government to recover, first to discover, and then somehow bring back this stolen asset. And as far as I know, the U.S. has such programs with many countries, mainly third world countries like in Africa and Latin America, Southeast Asia, when American law enforcement agencies are supporting the local law enforcement agencies to find the so-called illegal assets or stolen assets. As far as I know, the process started immediately after the change of government in Armenia in May, June, or in June, July 2018. So again, I don't know if this was a new push, or just this was a process which started 4 years ago and finally came to one concrete result. I'm not in a position to argue neither first nor second thing or option.
All right, well, let's go to the next topic, which is the normalization of Turkish and Armenian relations. The latest round of negotiations happened on May 3rd. The negotiations are always in a closed format, but there was an article in which you were quoted in Al Monitor by Amber and Zaman that essentially said that there has been no progress in these negotiations so far, and apparently they're stalled. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and why, if you agree, and if so, what are the major, bones of contention in these negotiations? And we also know that, for instance, Armenia offered as a step towards these, Armenia offered to have only allow diplomatic visa holders or diplomatic passport holders to travel freely back and forth, but apparently Turkey rejected that. So what's going on?
I will agree to the assessment that this Armenia-Turkey normalization process is somehow if not in a deadlock, but in a limbo, because we have 3 meetings, and after each meeting we have identical statements that sides discussed something, and sides agreed to continue discussions without any preconditions. But let's not forget that the protest started even in, I believe, in autumn 2021, and definitely before the official appointment of this special representative, there was some behind the scenes process. So effectively, we may say that the protest is almost 9 months old, if not 1 year, because I believe that either immediately before the June 2021 early parliamentary elections or immediately after the June 2021 early parliamentary elections, the Secretary of Security Council, Armen Grigoryan, made a statement that yes, we think that we should normalize relations with Turkey. So at least we have the 9 months protests, which resulted in nothing. So why is this? I don't believe that Armenian government is not sincere in its wish or in its dream to normalize relations with both Turkey and Azerbaijan, and effectively Armenian government realized all previous Turkish preconditions. De facto, Armenian government rejected or give up its role as a security guarantor of Nagorno-Karabakh. Now, Prime Minister hinted that it's ready to accept Nagorno-Karabakh as a part of Azerbaijan if Azerbaijan provides some sort of guarantees. And also, the international recognition of Armenian genocide is not an active part of Armenian foreign policy agenda. So we may say that the most of previous Turkish preconditions, Armenian government realized. So let's say it did its best somehow to push forward this normalization process. My understanding is that Turkey is not very much interested in this. And why? And I don't believe this is a high-level priority for Turkey, the normalization process with Armenia. Why this could be the case? First of all, I believe maybe Turkey thinks that in any case he should not be in a hurry because, okay, at the end of the day, Armenia de facto lost Karabakh, so Armenia has no other way than to normalize relations with Turkey. Like, okay, we solved the significant issues with Armenia. Yes, there is the issue of recognition of Treaty of Kars of October 1921, like official recognition by Armenia and official recognition of that treaty. This issue remains, but my understanding is that Turkey believes that, okay, Armenia effectively is done. As I mentioned, Azerbaijan thought that the 2020 war solved the Karabakh issue, and simply Azerbaijan needs more time to finalize this. I believe Turkey also has these perceptions that they done with Armenia, and simply they are not in a way to hurry. And my understanding also is that because they know that US is interested in Armenia-Turkey normalization process, being it as a strategic asset in weakening Russian influence in South Caucasus, my understanding is that now there should be some behind the doors negotiations or trade between US and Turkey, and maybe Turkey may say United States that, okay, guys, if you are really interested to make this happen quickly, then please implement A, implement B, implement C. What this A, B, C could be, theoretically, it may start from returning back Turkey into F-35 program, which is definitely less likely. The most likely scenario is somehow to facilitate the purchase of F-16 military jets, which Turkey wants to purchase from United States, or, for example, the cancellation of U.S. sanctions against U.S. defense industry. So my understanding is that Turkey is not in a hurry. Turkey does not believe that normalization of relations with Armenia is in its priority list, because again, they believe that Armenia is done at the end of the day strategically, and they think that, okay, if there are other actors who interested more in Armenia-Turkey normalization process, let them pay the price.
Yeah. So basically, you think that they're holding these conversations hostage for some other deals, like basically F-16s, F-35s, Patriot systems, or whatever they need from the United States.
My understanding is that definitely there are some negotiations between Turkey and the United States, what the US is ready to do for Turkey to move forward with this protest. Another option could be that at the end of the day, despite Turkey and Azerbaijan believe that Armenia is done and Nagorno-Karabakh is lost, but they would like to see this fixed in agreement. So theoretically, I'm not sure, but another reason besides trade with United States or bargaining let's use term bargaining, strategic bargaining, okay,
Yeah.
geopolitical term. Besides strategic bargaining with United States, maybe Turkey also would like to see at least the start of peace negotiations between Armenia and Azerbaijan and to receive more guarantees that, if not immediately now, but at least until 2025, Armenia is ready to sign peace agreement, de jure recognizing Karabakh as part of Azerbaijan. Maybe the second reason why Turkey is not in a hurry, and de facto is simply we have the stalled process. The number one reason is strategic bargaining with United States, and the second reason could be to wait until Armenia officially starts peace negotiation with Azerbaijan.
So right after these meetings, basically on May 3rd, I don't remember the exact date of the statement, but we hadn't heard from Iran for a while, and Iran came out with a statement reiterating support for Armenian control of the transit links. Why would they suddenly speak up?
Okay, Iranians' position is very interesting. We all know that back in December, they made a statement or made a decision that they are going to open consulate in Munich. Then, for several months, nothing happened on this direction. But in late April 2022, Iranian ambassador visited Kapan, the capital of Munich region, and met with governor of Munich region and met with mayor of Kapan, and they discussed, among other things, also the issue of opening Iranian consulate in Kapan, and even the ambassador saw some buildings or some area when this consulate can be deployed. My understanding is that Iran definitely does not want to see, of course, they don't want to see the de facto occupation of Munich by Azerbaijani forces, but also they don't want to see growing economic influence of Azerbaijan and Turkey in Munich.
I just looked up the date, and it turns out that they made the statement right the day before the meeting, not after the meeting.
On May
On
2nd.
May 2nd.
Yeah. Iran is concerned even about the growing economic penetration or economic influence of Turkey and Azerbaijan in Munich, because they know that Munich is a small territory. The population of Munich is no more than 120,000 for entire region. So for Azerbaijan and Turkey, it will be very easy to establish an economic influence and then turn it into economic or political influence in Munich. That is why they are definitely against any change of borders, but also they are not interested to see economic penetration and economic influence of Turkey and Azerbaijan in Munich, and that is why they are interested to establish a consulate. And one more thing, as far as I know, currently Iran and the Eurasian Economic Union are finalizing their negotiations for free trade deal. They signed interim free trade deal in May 2018 for 2 years. Then they extended this interim deal for another year, and now they are finalizing negotiations to sign permanent free trade deal between Iran and the Eurasian Economic Union. As far as I know, Iranians are interested to establish some factories in Munich, which will potentially produce some consumer electronics like washing machines or refrigerators, and then sell them with tariff-free to Russia, mostly to southern Russia, like North Caucasus, Krasnodar, Stavropol, and etc. And my understanding is that by doing this, Iranians are not only interested in pure economic benefits, but also if they will be able to establish some Iranian factories in Munich, this also will be the counterbalance for potential Turkish and other economic influence in the region.
Mm-hmm. One more point I want to ask you, Benyamin. There was a statement from Çavuşoğlu, Foreign Minister of Turkey, saying that they were interested perhaps in demarcating the border between Armenia and Turkey.
Not just that they were interested, but there is there is an agreement.
Yeah, he did say that there was an agreement, and of course that was denied by the Armenian Foreign Ministry. But while both sides are continuing to say that there are no preconditions to these discussions, all these essentially conditions do come up all the time. Do you think that this was basically a trial balloon sent up by Turkey to see if Armenia will continue its inability to say no to any kind of conditions that Turkey puts up? Or do you think that it's testing some red lines by Armenia, possibly as an excuse to slow down the discussions on the Armenian side rather than the Turkish side?
Okay, my understanding is that speaking about delimitation and demarcation, Turkey brought up the third precondition which he put forward during football diplomacy of 2008-2009. As I mentioned, effectively, current Armenian government accepted or implemented or realized the two preconditions to give up Armenia's role of security guarantor of Artsakh, to end up the so-called occupation of Azerbaijani lands, and second, not to very actively pursue the international recognition of Armenian genocide. The third precondition was to legally recognize the Kars Treaty of 1921. My understanding is that now Turkey tries to understand, okay, if Armenian government accepted the two preconditions which were under the negotiation during 2008-2009 football diplomacy, let's see if Armenian government is ready to accept or realize also our third precondition. And of course, we have no access what Mr. Rubinyan and Serdar Kilic are speaking behind the closed doors. So theoretically, this issue may came up also during the negotiations, and maybe Turkey decided to see what the reaction is, not only of Armenian government, public reaction, but also the Armenian society in Armenia and also the diaspora, because we understand that when we speak about the recognition of a Kars Treaty by Armenia, this is an issue which also relates and deals with Armenian diaspora. So my understanding is that this was most probably ballooned to see the public reaction of Armenian government. Again, I don't exclude that this issue was discussed behind the closed doors. And of course, we don't know what the Armenian government reaction was behind the closed doors. But I believe maybe Turkey would like to see what will be Armenian government's public reaction, and also what will be the reaction of Armenian society and also the diaspora.
Well, so far the public reaction has been that Armenia denied that they have agreed to this. So,
yes, Armenian
which means that Armenia has agreed to it.
Rejected that even this have been discussed, not only agreed but even discussed.
And to clarify, we have seen a lot of denials become reality. So when I mean
that's right,
which means that Armenia has agreed to it. There's it's consistent with the past.
Yes, in that case, starting from 2018, our prime minister stated maybe 100 times that he's not going to sign anything in secrecy regarding Nagorno-Karabakh. But then he signed this statement of November 10 fixing Armenia's disastrous defeat in absolute secrecy.
Okay, that concludes our topics. Let's come to the point of finding out, do our panelists have something on their minds that they would like to talk about? Benyamin, do you have something that you want to talk about?
Just a few words. Now the South Caucasus is in a very interesting geopolitical dynamic situation, of course impacted also by the war in Ukraine. So we are in a situation when, yes, situation for Armenia can become much worse, but also there are some possibilities that at least we may stop this declining path. So let's see and do everything which is at our hands, of course, to stop the decline of Armenia at least.
Okay, Hovik, what's on your mind?
I have been ranting a lot already during our live, but there was a recent statement signed by 100 cowards, or I don't know how many, like there was, seemed like about 100. It was called Peace Without Buts. And basically this said that in countering the demands for return of our lands, implying Artsakh, implying historic Armenian territory, we are countering with demands for peace without buts, meaning peace without any preconditions. It is humiliating that some of the names to see on this list, including people who are supposedly for women's rights. Basically, this is saying like for an abused woman, she's basically going back to her abusive husband and submitting to be abused even more. Yeah, this analogy was originally introduced to me by Alice and Tahmizyan Muse, and it really stuck. And another tweet in response to this, I think it was very interesting. Someone tweeted, I'll give credit to Filor Nigo, at least that's what they go by on Twitter. And they said, in all my years of activism and exposure to various social movements, I have never seen a group of, quote, human rights activists as defeatist as the Armenian ones. I have never seen other activist groups bow down to oppressors and put aside justice for the sake of peace. Mind blown.
All right, we'll leave it there for today. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Benjamin, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be with you.
Okay, that was our Week in Review show, and we hope it helped you catch up with some of the issues in and around Armenia from this past week. As always, we invite your feedback and your suggestions. You can find us on most social media and podcast platforms or our website, groong.org. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel on YouTube, like our pages, and follow us on social media. On behalf of everyone in this episode, we wish you a good week. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.